Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Indigenous Sessions. We are on the topic of get off your island and build kingdom partnerships. We're so glad you're able to join us this morning. And for some of you, maybe the afternoon or the evening. We're so glad that you are able to join. We're actually about 40 over participants around the world. We've been holding these sessions for quite a number of times now. This is the fourth session, and we welcome you to check out the sessions that you may have missed. You can interact with us anytime through the question box. So at the end of our time, about 15 minutes or so, you'll get the opportunity to ask some questions. Well, I realized I didn't introduce myself. My name is Simon, and on behalf of the Indigenous team, we'd like to welcome you to this session. So today we have Arjo de Vroome from the Netherlands, and
Hi, Simon.
the topic
Hi, everybody.
is on kingdom partnerships. I think he's online. You can see him. Hi, Arjo.
Hello, everybody. Great to have you join us.
So we'll start off our time by just hearing a little bit of a story or testimony, his personal story, and how God has been working in his life. And then we'll dive right into the main topic at hand. And remember, you can always type in the questions, and our moderators here will pick them up, and we'll order them to ask the Arjo a little bit. So, Arjo, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and
Yeah, well, thanks, Simon, for having me. I am Arjo. I'm a Dutch guy who actually was formed by being a missionary kid on the mission field in West Africa. I could probably say that being a missionary kid has made me who I am, and also prepared me for the things that I do actually today. I was born about 40 years ago in a small village behind a Dutch dike. And my parents were a loving Christian family. They went to church, but didn't really make a personal commitment until later in their life. This eventually led them to become missionaries in Burkina Faso. And I had the opportunity to go to an international boarding school in Ivory Coast. And that's where I grew up. It was a great opportunity. And during my teenage years, I made my commitment to follow Jesus. And one of the ones that really mentored me during that time was my first dorm dad, Evan Evans, and I'm still thankful for him up until today. He's really helped me grow in my faith and being a great example for me. And during one of the mission weeks at our school, there was one of the pastors who spoke, and I'll read the verse. It says from Isaiah 6, verse 8. It says, "Then I heard the Lord saying, whom shall I send, and who will go for us? And Isaiah said, here am I, send me." This is actually one of the verses that spoke to my heart and got me started on the path of becoming involved in missions work. And it was a few years later, in the year 2000, I was at an Internet Evangelism Coalition conference in Canada, where God spoke to me through Romans 10, where it says, how then can they call on the one they have not believed in? And how can they believe in the one whom they've not heard? And how can they hear without someone telling them? Well, that was for me the thing that God put onto my heart and got me started on this track. And since then, I've been available to where God leads, and that's been the reason why I've joined the Jesus.net network, and I've been actively working with them for about 10 years now. Just a short summary of my life and how God called me into this.
Thank you, Arjo. Yeah, as Arjo has mentioned, he works with Jesus.net. He's part of the executive team, and this is a global organization of online evangelism, and they work with 50 over other partners and organizations. And we couldn't find a better person to talk about partnerships, And so we, why don't we just jump right in? The title is "Get Off Your Island." So what do you mean by that, and why is this so important?
Well, I guess I'll have to jump up with a picture just to kind of show you my fascination with islands. So if we could just jump to that, that'd be great. Okay, show my screen. There we go. You guys see the screen?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, Oops, sorry. Oh, shoot. Sorry, this little thing got in the way. There we go. Yeah, really, islands really fascinate me. And since I've taken my wife on our honeymoon to an island, that's where our love for islands and fascination started. Islands in itself are really interesting to me because they're a very small piece of land or a large piece of land, but the main thing is that they're disconnected from the mainland, which means that they need to be self-sufficient, and a lot of these islands are not. So it's very difficult, I would say, to really survive as island by itself, and that's why even in the early days, people would find ways to get commerce going, to find natural resources that were not found on the island, to go and find that on the mainland, and vice versa. So really, islands, I would say, are things that fascinate me. They used planes and boats to get there. And when you look at ministry, that fascinates me as well for those ministries that are on an island, because I really believe that islands, in the end, will not be able to survive in life. At the end of the day, people are not going to continue being able to live there. And the same is true for ministries that are on their own little island. Ultimately, I would say that ministries will die if they stay on their own island.
Well, that's great. So how does this, I'm sure you're going to tell us a little bit more, how does this relate to Christian ministries and why is this relevant for us? So go ahead and share with us.
Yeah, like I said, eventually I believe that ministries that are on their own island will eventually die. And one of the things that has really caught my heart is that they will not actually grow and develop if they stay on their own. Whereas connecting with other ministries really offers opportunities for them to exchange ideas and thoughts, experiences, and also help each other grow through that. So really, I would say, and that's why I said, really get off your island, because if you as a ministry continue to stay on your island, then it's going to keep you from growing and actually learning and seeing all of what God has in store for you as a ministry. And as we look at the commercial world, we see more and more organizations trying to find ways to work together. We see them, Google is trying to find new partnerships to work together. Apple is doing the same. Airlines are merging because they're seeing that by working together, they can make more money. And really in Christian ministry, I would say, well, the most important thing is not to make as much money as we can, but to reach as many people as we can. So that's why I really believe that partnerships are so crucial to bringing all of this together.
Thanks. Well, in your experience with Jesus.net, I'm sure you've learned many key principles that has helped you guide your partnerships, and would love to hear you share some of those principles. And then, of course, you can throw in, how it has related to Jesus.net specifically as a case study. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Actually, in preparing for this webinar, I thought it would be good to just share some key principles, some kingdom partnership principles, I would call them. And I've gotten 10 of them. I won't go into each of them very deeply, or not all of them very deeply. I'll zoom in on a number of them, but definitely I want to just share what we've experienced. And the first one I would say is it's not your kingdom.
Arjo, I think you're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Let's see where.
Oops.
Oops.
Okay, here.
Still good.
You hear all right? You all right?
We good?
Okay. Good. Go ahead.
It
seems like they can hear you. So go ahead.
All right. Let me just remove this screen. Sorry about that, people. Seemed like you weren't hearing me, but after all, you are. Again, the first principle I would say that is important in forming kingdom partnerships is it's not your kingdom, it's his kingdom. And as Richard Blackaby, a well-known author, said, God invites you to become involved with him in his work. And we need to see where God is at work and join him in that. Really, at the end of the day, God is the one that is working 24/7. And it's not our kingdom that we should be building or should be seeking, but we should be first seeking God's kingdom. And that's one of the key things, as Jesus said as well in Matthew 6. For Jesus.net, this is one of the main elements in our whole philosophy and thinking about partnerships, is that it's not about building a kingdom for Jesus.net. No, not at all. We're looking to build God's kingdom and see how local ministries all around the world can work together that. So we've made that very practical. There's no corporate headquarters of Jesus.net. We have no top-down approach. Now, the local ministries are the ones that are in control and are really owning the strategy that we've developed. Also, we see different ministries from all around the world contribute to Jesus.net, not for their own good, but for the bigger good of actually helping to build out God's kingdom. That would be the first one, I would say. The second one, important, is look for ways to complement each other. It's so important to look at, again, of how can we combine resources, can combine ideas and efforts together. And we can't do everything by ourselves, to be honest. We will never be able to work on everything ourselves. So we need each other as well. And let's look for ways to complement each other. And that starts with building friendships, looking for ways where the other ministry may be having something which is much better than we have, and also allowing ourselves to just recognize that and to let the others take on some parts, and the other way around, that we'll be able to do things better than others. So that's so important. We've within Jesus.net, we've actually started working with small working groups on different topics to exchange ideas and information with each other. We've found that exchanging this information has really been helpful in moving the whole network forward, as it allows everyone to give their ideas and experience, and from there, this group can then go out and individually apply it to their own ministries. Secondly, we have different people within the Jesus.net network actually contributing people and resources to different teams and different technology. And so that way we avoid spending the same resources or double up on resources, and we really make sure that we spend all the donations that come in through all the different local ministries, we spend them well. Another way is to see how can we communicate better with each other, so we can learn from each other by sending out monthly newsletters or doing webinars such as this one. The third principle, I would say, is to work really on the basis of trust and accountability. Trust is really, I would define it as the firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. So it's really to have a firm belief in the other person or in the other ministry. Accountability has to do more with, are we willing and able to take responsibility for something? And are we allowing ourselves to be accountable to each other? And so it's, on the one hand, it's trusting the other ministry, but it's also being accountable to each other. And I found that in the past 10 years of working with our different ministries all around the world, that to be a very important foundation. So, and as Matthew says, Matthew 5 says, let your yes be yes, let your no be no. So we should, when we say something, we should be able to trust it, but we should also be accountable to each other. So we share our ideas within Jesus.net. We really try to serve with excellence, and we are accountable to each other. So we're sharing results, seeing what plans are made, and from there we can really build out what we do locally. The fourth principle is that you ensure that you have compatible DNA. DNA, as you all know, is the makeup of our body. God had this incredible way of designing each and every one of us with a unique DNA. Every single person around the world has a unique DNA, but what is so exciting is that God wants to see where people have compatible DNA, where they can complement each other, like to the second principle which I shared. The DNA is what carries our values and our vision within Jesus.net. And whenever we look for, whenever we meet more organizations who want to join us, that is one of the first things that we try to find out. Is there a compatible DNA with a particular ministry and the network of Jesus.net. We've even taken that very practically and developed what we call a DNA test. And it's actually a DNA check in which we ask a number of questions just to double check, is the DNA that Jesus.net has compatible with the local ministry and the other way around. And that has really helped us to form solid partnerships throughout the years. The fifth principle, shortly, is to be transparent about your motivation and expectations up front and throughout the whole partnership. And this is our experience as well, that it's so important to share your motivation and why you want to do something or why you're involved in ministry. Because once we do that, we can really see if there's a connection and a compatibility. And to be transparent about that. We can be all excited about working together, but if the real motives are more about how can we serve our own agenda, then we're not really being transparent enough. So we should really be upfront in a partnership. It's important to really share that motivation upfront. That will also most likely avoid conflicts in the future or help avoid them to become too big. So really, what is your motivation and expectation of a partnership? That's why every time I sit down with a new partner, I ask them that question: what do you expect from joining Jesus.net? And that's an important question because it allows them to give ideas about that, but also gives me the opportunity to tell them whether that's a realistic expectation or not. So that's one of the things that I've learned from all these years as well. The sixth principle, I would say, that is so important for kingdom partnerships is to define a common dream, to set goals and to measure the outcome. To have a common dream, as Jesus.net, we have this common dream, and it says that we just imagine that every single person in the world has free access to the gospel, that they get to know God, get to grow in Jesus, and will share their faith easily. That's the main dream of Jesus.net. That's the dot on the horizon that all of us, our 55 plus partners, are working towards. And by having that common dream, it gives us a direction to go for. Secondly, it's helped us to set goals, be specific, to set goals in what we want to achieve, what projects we want to work on, what websites we want to launch, what tools we want to share, and within what time frame. And then from there, go and measure what the outcome of that is, to define, to double check if the expectations that we had about a particular tool or about a particular website or the way we set up our ministry process does what it should do. And one of the things that we're working on now is a dashboard which will allow us to actually see the progress that visitors from our websites have from website to website. As Jesus.net, we've set up a ministry strategy which we call the stepping stone strategy, and it's a matter of 4 phases: access, know, grow, and share. And there at the bottom of the presentation, you see those four phases actually. And we're right now working on actually defining, measuring how many people will actually go through the access phase and visit one of our websites, who will then move on to the next phase, which is the know phase. And from there to a stepping stone, a website, into the grow phase, and from there on share it. And so in this way, we're really working hard to also measure the outcome. So we first of all define the outcome, the desired outcome, we set the goals, be specific as possible, and then we measure the outcome. Another one for partnerships is so important is that we operate on the basis of why, how, and what. And it really starts with a question, again, why? Why do we want to work together? Why are we put on this earth? Why are we wanting to see God's kingdom grow? And that's an essential question with anything that we do as Jesus.net, but it's also important for you as a ministry to consider. Why do you get out of bed every morning? What is driving you forward? And why are you being maybe stopped in the progress that you're trying to make? Then the question, how? How do we progress? What is our strategy? What is our philosophy behind it? What are the how do we move forward, and how do we work? And then move into the what. What are the practical things that we should be doing? And in discussing these three questions with other organizations, other ministries around you, and finding common answers will help you build a solid basis for kingdom partnerships. Dealing with problems can be an issue if they get very big, but that's why it's so important to deal with problems when they're small. Too oftentimes, I would say, we deal with them too late, and there's always something that we need to maybe work on, and we just kind of scoot it aside because we think, oh, there's bigger things that we need to achieve. But really, I would challenge you, and I would really encourage you to deal with problems when they're really small, because it will take less energy, it will take less effort to deal with them, and because small problems don't stay small, and if you don't deal with them now, you'll have to deal with them later. So really, it's important also in beginning of your partnerships to really define how you will deal with differences in opinion, how you'll deal with differences in response, and what you will do then. So when you're starting a relationship, it's so good to also define that process before any problems arise. That way, when things do become problematic, you can actually deal with them effectively. The way that I do this is that I work with about 20 ministries of Jesus.net directly. Of those 55, I work with 20 of them directly, and I try to I Skype with them or do a hangout every 4 to 6 weeks, just to connect with them, to find out where they're at, and also to see where I can help them. And then they'll often come up with ideas or thoughts that they're running into, or barriers to ministry, and then we can walk through that and talk with each other about that. And I can be of help for them when things are often still small. A second way of doing it is that within Jesus.net, as an executive team, we've taken the effort and said our commitment is to answer any email within 24 hours, if possible. That's a big commitment, I realize, but we find that it's important because sometimes if we wait too long, the problem could get bigger before we know it. So we want to deal with problems when they're small. The ninth principle is to have those crucial conversations when you need them. There's even a book about this, Crucial Conversations. I'd really recommend you buy it. I've read it in the past year, and it's really helped me in working with our partners. Having crucial conversations means that you actually address those topics that need to be addressed. Oftentimes we kind of avoid them, and definitely in the Christian world we try to avoid them because we want to be nice to each other. But you probably know of some questions or issues that you're needing to talk to about with other ministries, or even within your own ministry. You may be dealing with some issues that you think, well, I should have this conversation, but I'll just kind of let it go. But I would really challenge you, don't sweep them under the rug. Deal with them, because that will help you move forward as a ministry, but it will also strengthen your relationships with other partner ministries in the future. In this past year, I've had several of these crucial conversations with our partner organizations, and I've learned that it helps them, and it helps me as well in our relationship, and it's really helped us to really think about what we need to focus on, and it's solved a lot of problems, and we've seen God work through that. To be honest, we've had to end some of our partnerships as well because things just didn't go the way that we had expected to go, and they had expected to go. But having that conversation also allowed both the ministry as well as Jesus.net to move on. And just to illustrate that from a biblical point of view, it's like Paul and Barnabas. They decided to part ways at some point in their ministry. It was based on a disagreement about Mark, but they both kept going for their God. They kept serving God in their capacity with their talents, and even Paul in 1 Corinthians 9, I looked it up the other day, and it says Paul would later affectionately mention Barnabas as being worthy of support in his work of proclaiming the gospel. So even if a crucial conversation ends up in parting ways, that does not mean that you cannot bless others. So I'd really challenge you to think about what are some of the crucial conversations that I need to maybe have within my ministry or with partner ministries to deal with those things. And last, but certainly not least, have a sense of urgency. I mean, there is a world to save out there, and I know that the dream of Jesus.net is huge, to reach every single person of the world, and whoever you are in your ministry, wherever you're at, there is a lot of people that don't know Jesus yet, and that gets me out of bed every morning, and gets me motivated and driving to work, to get on a plane and work alongside ministries to see what can we really do to help bring the gospel to people, and to also help them learn who Jesus is, but then to grow in their faith. So it's not only getting them to the point of making a decision to follow Jesus. No, it's also helping them grow in their relationship. We have little time. There's lots of things to do. So let's really get that sense of urgency for us and develop importance, because time is running out. Let's be aware of that as well. So those are, I would say, the 10 principles that I would say that are key to forming kingdom partnerships and to getting off that island. You can reach out to others to really move forward, both for your ministry and also to look how you can help others join in that as well.
Wow, Arjo, that was excellent. I personally picked up a few things that I thought were really helpful. I like number 5, where it talks about being transparent about your motivations and expectations. Great questions you have there. What motivates you to join? What are you hoping to see? What do you expect to contribute? What do you expect to gain? And it is a win-win situation that we are desiring. And I also especially like you talked about deal with the problems when they are small. This is one of the challenges sometimes we have, in terms of thinking about being gracious to one another. We say, oh, we let it slide, and then we don't take care of it. And when actually it is difficult to bring it up, mending the relationships, treasuring the relationships, because it is about the kingdom's work. And then the final point you talked about, the sense of urgency. In a little while, I'm going to ask you also. I know that even with the wealth experience, it's not always smooth sailing. You have already shared some of those examples. We want to hear some of those challenges. And I know out there, the 40 of you that are on this call, you have many questions in your mind about how this applies to your ministry. So feel free to type in your question box, and then we'll take your questions in a little bit. So Arjo, would you just share with us, in your context, what are some of the challenges that you faced, and what have you learned as a result of that?
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, Simon, these past 10 years of Jesus.net have not always been a smooth ride, and it's still not a smooth ride. It's those lessons that we learn as we go. So I would say kingdom partnerships is hard work. I'm not going to make it any easier. It takes effort, it takes energy, and it takes perseverance. And that's some of those things that were really that would I would say really form maybe the challenges and that make it difficult. Also in a global context are a few of these that I'll just show and put up on the screen. It's first of all, it's some of the cultural barriers or some of the cultural differences, I would rather call them. Our network of Jesus.net is a global network, which means that we work with multiple cultures, multiple languages, different principles in life of how people view life. And that in itself is already a challenge. I had the opportunity, as I shared earlier, to grow up on an international boarding school. And in 4th grade, I was in class with 20 students, and there were 15 nationalities. And that really prepared me, I think, for the way that I do the work now. But that has really, I would say, sensing and having a sensitivity for each other's culture, whether that be a local culture or a ministry culture, is really important when we try to work together. So that's part of the thing that I really challenged you to also talk about when you start looking for partners, when you're in a partnership. What does that mean to you? Secondly, it's the communication. We all know communication is sometimes very difficult. It's like you're talking and in the maximum of missing each other, missing the boat, maximum of his communication. And we have language, again, the background, the cultural things, and also nowadays email in itself is a limited a medium, I would say. Technology can be a limiting factor as well, as we find ways to find the right tools. As Jesus.net, we've spent significant times in finding how do we communicate best with people online, with our searchers that we're trying to reach. What are those elements? And I could do a whole other webinar on what it takes to communicate with searchers online, but that's one of the challenges of how do we figure that out. Also, in terms of partnerships, what are the right tools to communicate with each other? What are some of the technology instabilities? I mean, Hangout, Skype can be unstable at times. Reaching out to each other from Africa or from Asia, I've been in several situations where I've had a very low bandwidth and tried to Skype with one of our partners, and it's challenging at times. Health, and I'm not talking about actual health of a person, although that can be a factor, but the actual health of a ministry is something that we, as Jesus.net, we're really keen on figuring out how healthy are our partners and how can we help them to become even more healthy. Because I think only from healthy partners we'll be able to see healthy fruit. So also looking at the ministry process. How healthy is your process? Is it focused only on one aspect, or is there a whole ministry process in place? Those are things that I would challenge you to think about as well. Selecting, for us as a network, selecting the right partners who can help us out in different ways, and how can we support the different ministries the best way we can. Really, we're on the cutting edge of things, and also that is an important factor to take into consideration to stay healthy. So we also just make that very practical in just telling people to take their rest when they need their rest, not to get lazy, but to be sure that when you're healthy yourself, you can be a healthy partner as well, and also as a ministries that goes for the same thing. And the last challenge I think I would say we face is a spiritual one. We're doing God's work, I believe, and many of you are in the same type of ministry or are working in different areas of God's kingdom, and we're all doing God's work. But there is one enemy that doesn't like it, and he'll try anything to try to divert us, to take us off track, and that's one of the challenges. So I would really challenge you, and I challenge myself regularly to ask people to pray for you. I know what the power of prayer can do, and just have a set of guarding angels around our work and around your work is so important. So that's just crucial also to move forward. And as I said, the enemy is busy trying to get us off track. Let's not let him give him that room to actually do that. So those would be, 5 challenges that I would say that would really be something to consider and also to be aware of in working together with others.
Well, thanks, Arjo. Appreciate your vulnerability as you share with us some of those challenges. Number of questions are coming in, and we appreciate it. You can keep typing in the question box. And I'll give it to you, Arjo, in a moment. Right, put you on the spot.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, as we wrap up this session here, what would you say are the main results or the fruit that has come out of the Kingdom Partnerships, at least for you in Jesus.net, and the joy of partnerships, and whatever you've seen as a result?
Yeah, I would, Simon, I would say, and to all of you, it's really not about transaction, it's about transformation. And when I say it's not about transaction, it's not the question, what can I get from you, or what do you want from me? But it's much more about what kind of transformation do you want to see? First of all, in the lives of the people that you're trying to reach with your ministry. What transformation do you really want to see happen? Secondly, what transformation do you want to see in your partnership? A transactional model, I would say, is me going to the supermarket, buying my groceries, paying at the cashier, and walking out the door. I have a transactional relationship with the cashier at the supermarket. But really what we're looking for in kingdom partnerships, or should be looking for, is transformation. And when we look at that, we see growth in our relationship with Jesus, with God, in our own life with Him. That's the first one. I would say see fruit and growth in our personal relationship with Jesus, because that, at the end of the day, is the most important thing. Secondly is I see growth within Jesus.net and in my own personal life with others, in relationship with other people. I am dependent on others to keep me on track and to keep me accountable. And the same is true for Jesus.net. Jesus.net is there because of all the different partners that are owners of it and are engaged in the network. Without these partners, there would be no Jesus.net. And so we really see growth in the partnership with, in the relationship with others. And thirdly, we see fruit in your ministry, and that's what you ultimately what you're hoping for and you're hoping to see, and that's what we're hoping to see, and we're seeing it more and more, is that we're able to reach thousands of people every day. About 4,000 to 5,000 people each day on one of our websites indicates they want to take a step forward in knowing God, and that's fruit. Eventually, if they end up in a local church, that's where we want to see people end up. So from moving from online, becoming an online disciple, online searcher, to become an offline disciple would be the way that I would see the fruit of kingdom partnerships really moving forward. So in your personal life, in your relationship with others, and in your ministry, those would be the three types of fruit that you need to identify and look at and also measure, because then you can really see what the impact is of what God is doing in your life and your ministry.
Well, thanks, Arjo. We praise God with you for the fruit that you guys have seen in Jesus.net. I'm not sure if you mentioned, but you said nearly 70 million visitors, 10 million have taken a decision
That's
to
right.
know more. And it's
we've had
we praise God
we've
for that.
seen lots of e-coaches, our online mentors, join in our network. Thousands of churches which are involved, and just seeing that multitude of people being involved and also being touched by God, and eventually ending up in a local church. And a lot of them are coming back to help out and being an e-coach. So that's awesome. That's
great. That's great. And we've seen the organization, the partnerships grow from 5 to 57. Right, I've attended one of your conferences before, and I really felt like it's a family, it's a movement for sure. People do care for one another, people do strive towards the same goal, and I see the principles that you've laid out, being applied, very faithfully in different ways. So we have some questions coming up now. So I hope you're ready, Arjo. We have a question. Let's start off with this one from Patrick Martin. He's asking, how do you balance staying focused on your particular calling and at the same time developing partnership?
How do you stay on your calling and department? All right, Mark. Yep, I heard the question. Really, I would say they go hand in hand. At least for myself personally, but also for the network of Jesus.net, is one of the essential foundations is our calling is to reach out to searchers online. But to be able to do that, we do this always in partnership. We intentionally ask new partners when we're talking to them, what are organizations that can help you move forward, or what are you missing that others can do? And it's going back to that question on a regular basis. Why are we doing this, and how do we do this, and what do we need to do? So it's I would not put them I would put them side to side, like it's a joint effort, really, to stay focused on what God has called you to do, and at the same time think about where partnerships can actually complement again your efforts.
So I hear that it's not just an either or, it's a both and I guess wisdom is discernment is required to know how much of time you put in one of those.
Right. Yeah, yeah, and be sure. I think it was Patrick that asked the question. Be sure that it takes time. Like I said, it's about transformation, and it's not about a transaction. Going into a supermarket is going 5 minutes in, going out.
Yeah.
But building real partnerships takes time and effort. And just a very short example: I used to travel around the world, and being Dutch and being very efficient, I would land on the night before, do a training session, and fly out on the third night. Since then, in the past years, I've added at least 1 or 2 days of my time to spend time with the team on the ground, because it's about relationships, it's working together, and just learning how they work makes me more effective in supporting them.
Yeah, that's good. Well, one question that has come in that is would require you maybe to dig in a little deeper or expand for us. It's a question of, can you go into more details about the DNA test? I think that sounded fascinating to one of our callers. And what does that look like? And could you explain a little more?
Yeah. As Jesus.net, we've taken our time to really define what is our dream, as I shared. What are our values, and what are our vocations? So what are the values that we really find important, and what are some of the gifts and talents, I would say, that are within the network? Based on that, we've put, and you can go to the website of Jesus.net and find it all there, or in a set of those values and vocations. And the DNA test, what it does actually, it asks it has a number of statements which you can go through and choose which one applies best to your ministry. So you just sit down and say, okay, Indigenous, I'm going to sit down and think through and watch these statements, and then click and check these statements. At the end, the outcome of those statements, and there's a number of pages, results actually comes out to a certain percentage of matching, I would say, which is the level of how much of a complement there is between the DNA of the local ministry and Jesus.net. So that's how it practically works, and it's there's no right or wrong answer, I would say, in filling in this DNA test, but it does help us have the conversation a little bit more specific about the values that a particular ministry has. I hope that answers the question.
Blood samples or saliva swabs?
that may be an idea.
Okay, I think we may have time for one more question. The question actually more has to do with Jesus.net. The question of how does partnership with Jesus.net look like? So, for example, in Agape UK, that was specified in the question there. What is expected, or the benefits of working? And then the final part of the question was, do you have partners in South Africa at the moment?
Okay. To start with that last one, we don't have any partners yet in South Africa.
Okay.
But we're open to explore those opportunities. What is the question more about what involves a partnership within Jesus.net is really...
I think what it involves,
What it involves, What you're, as a ministry, we find it very important that local ministries are the ones that we're working actually with, or the local ministries, and both national and international, form Jesus.net. Again, there's no corporate headquarters, but there is a small support team or coordination team that supports these partners. The benefits of Jesus.net I would say, are a global network with experience and ideas, a very clear, I would say, proven model of ministry. The stepping stones model, again, you can this call is too short to explore, expand into that, but definitely on Jesus.net you can find out more about that. It is a way of helping online searchers actually end up in the local church. So there's proven experience there. There's specific tools for each of the phases that we've defined, and those are freely available to the Jesus.net partners. Next to that, there's a conference every 18 months in which we gather together for sharing ideas and thoughts like that. There's technology out there that is available to all the partners, and it's not only receiving, because now it says, it feels like maybe Jesus.net gives, it does, but we're also expecting our local ministries to contribute, whether that be in ideas, whether that be in innovation, maybe in technology. We have a number of technology partners within the network who actually day-to-day develop new technology for us. And that all gets brought into the network and then shared with all the other partners for that. So that's just a very short kind of explanation of what a partnership would bring.
Yeah. And I'm sure if anyone is interested here, they can write to you.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Jesus.net. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep, that's correct. Absolutely. That's right.
Excellent.
Yep.
Well, we have a little bit of time left, but we wanted to make sure that we present to you, the callers, an opportunity to apply these in your own context. And we have, Arjo and I have talked about this, and we've come up with some homework, some application questions. Do you want to present it, or do you want me to read them up?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll put it up on the screen, but you can present it. Basically what we've thought of is that just some, sorry guys, let me show my screen. There we go. All right. Is it showing, Simon? Yep.
Yes, it is.
Basically, we thought of two very practical next steps. Offering you 10 next steps would probably not get you out of your chair and moving, so we thought let's limit it to 2. Just to start off with, the other 8 you can ask later. Think of the 1 or 2 steps that would take you towards either new partnerships or strengthen existing partnerships. I think it's important to just sit down, even after you finish with this webinar, or maybe tomorrow or early next week, is to sit down by yourself or with your team, just to think of who are our partners, or who could be our potential partners that we could work with in our area of ministry, and how can we strengthen that partnership. And it could be, make sure that you use some of those principles that I talked about. Secondly, which one of those principles that really resonates with you most, and which motivates you the most towards a specific action to get off your island, to stop, and get off your own island and take that step out to the other islands that may be out there, or to go out to the mainland and connect with those people and ministries. Which of those principles that I shared would be helpful to get you moving into that direction? Oftentimes I say you don't have to know the entire route it takes, the entire road it takes to get somewhere, but the important thing is to start. And I would really challenge you again to really take that first step to move towards strengthening existing partnerships or finding new partners.
Excellent. Well, we want to encourage you guys, make this practical for you, and this is important that you take the next step. And our desire is that this adds value to you in your ministry and your work. We want to let you know. I think you should see on your screen now that. Oh, in just a moment. Okay, you can see a screen on the next sessions. That is on March 3rd, 24th, on Writing for the Web by Justin Stowell. He's the crew brand manager, and I think this will be an excellent session for you to discover, how writing relevant content that can connect with your audience. So this is, watch out for it. Again, the website is at ourindicators.org/sessions. One other thing that we want you to take note is that you can go to the website to relive or re-listen to this sessions once again, or to share it with somebody that may not be able to make it, and then also, of course, view the previous sessions that have been recorded. Once again, we want to thank Arjo de Vroome for making time to share with us. We are really glad that these principles are distilled in a concise and practical way, and we hope that it will take you further in the ministry that God has called you to. Thanks, Arjo. Appreciate you.
You're welcome. glad
See
to
you
be.
in
Thank you.
March. We'll catch up more.
Yeah, that's right. Looking forward to it.
Well, thanks again for joining us on Indigenous Sessions. Right after this sessions, as you hang up from the call, you should get a survey. And it's just 3 or 4 questions. We appreciate if you give us your feedback and give us your comments and let us know how we can improve. We really want to serve you better. Thanks again very much. We hope you enjoyed Indigenous Sessions.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.